right, folks, we're back with another episode of Skirmish Supremacy, and today we are joined by Chris from RPG Crate. Chris, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me on. It's been very hot day. The weather's rather warm here today.
Yeah, it's been pretty sweltering down here in the Atlanta area, too. And as usual, we are joined by my co-host, Nick, who's over there doing some random stuff. Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, and I got the Outlaw kit from North Star for Frostgrave, so I was looking at that.
All right, already too much talking. No, but on a serious note, Chris is on today to talk about his company, RPG Crate, and we're going to grill him on some questions. We're going to ask him some things that are make him feel completely uncomfortable, and then we're just going to send him on his merry way. So, Chris, how about you tell us a little bit about what made you want to start RPG Crate, and tell us a little bit about it as well.
Yeah, so it's kind of a long story. It actually starts, I guess, back in late 1990. I graduated from high school in 1990 and was involved in gaming ever since then. I was 13 when I bought my first D&D box set. It was the red box set, and I was completely hooked on role-playing. And ever since then, I've been gaming. And in late 1990, right after Amazon started, I started a company called Lost Tomes and started selling books online, kind of through eBay and some other outlets. And Amazon wasn't real popular back then. It just got started. It had sort of a slow start, actually. But Bezos got it up and running in late 90s during the dot-com boom. And at that point, I realized, the whole world of gaming and books and online and all of that, I think, was going to change a great deal. And I wanted to be involved in a little more in technology. So I've worked with a couple of technology companies, software development, training, business analysis, and things like that. And I really just gamed hobbyist on and off throughout the years. Had a couple of friends that had a store, had a real good buddy that had a Magic the Gathering store pretty much when that started off with Beta and Revised. He retired from the railroad and started a store. And I just sort of went in and out of the whole idea of starting a business or continuing to work, and I never really put things together until about 2 years ago. I was watching somebody's play, and the games that they had in front of them, it was sort of mixed. It was like Dungeons and Dragons and some things from some of the older Judges Guild and some dungeon magazines, and it was sort of this eclectic group of games. And I realized there really wasn't a way for a person who hadn't gamed for years and years and years to get exposure to our industry like that. There wasn't really a way for a person to see how prolific and how awesome some of those old things were, how it worked with some of the new games, and it was sort of just a light bulb. It's like, subscription services have been around for a long time. Sock of the Month Club is, something that was done a long time ago. And there really wasn't one that I was aware of that was into role-play games. So I did a little bit of research. I found out there was a dude that had created one a little while back. Myth Horde is a pretty good one. And then just this last year, there's another group of guys that have created one that was Dungeon Crate. And I don't have a problem mentioning their names at all. I know we're slightly competitors, but the space is still pretty wide open for that matter, and competition is always pretty good. But it just occurred to me that so there wasn't one that offered all of the role play stuff, the written content, art, dice, and old school and new school. There wasn't one that kind of pulled it together. So that's what I wanted to do. I decided, okay, I had the license, I had the access to the vendors, I had access to the business and things like that I had been playing around with for years, and decided to go full time with it.
Cool. Okay, so give us a little bit of an example. What companies or what vendors have you been working with in order to get this started?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I I wanted to give you a little bit of history. I, at first, was thinking when I first, concepted this, that I could use my existing distributor agreements with some of the regular gaming distributors and create sort of a package, create a box of stuff, and then get subscribers and send it out. And at first that seemed like it would be okay, but when I started talking to people, it occurred to me that people want a little more than just what they can go to their gaming store and purchase or what they can go online and buy. They want something that's a little more interesting or unusual, and a lot of gamers, I've learned, are really into community and building games within their community and supporting small businesses. So although I had contacts with some of the bigger distributors and things from my other business, I really didn't have the contacts that I needed with some of the smaller independent developers and artists that were really good but maybe were not prolific in the industry yet. So that's kind of what I've been focusing on. I want the crate to be sort of a half and half, old school, new school. It's going to have independent developers in it, and it's going to have some of the new stuff that is maybe early release or something that's related to new. My primary objective is to not make a crate that's just a whole bunch of stuff you could go buy yourself. I want it to introduce new things to people, stuff that may not have considered otherwise. And it's got to have a component that integrates within their existing game today. So that's kind of the direction we went. So, I guess, long answer. So there's a lot of vendors that I've got currently, about a dozen artists and developers are involved in Crate 1.
Okay. Do you have any examples of those?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you don't have to go into the details, but just giving people a little bit of a taste.
Don't mind at all. So you guys know Ben Jarvis.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, you guys did an interview with him. So I talked with Ben, and we worked out a deal where one of his products that he creates is called Etchmaster. It's a really thin sheet of brass photo. I'm not real keen on the technology, how it's created, but let me just tell you, it's really, really slick. It's a very thin sheet of brass that's basically printed, and you cut the little pieces out, and you can embellish your miniatures with it. It adds like a knife, a shield, a sword, a plate, a set of knives and forks for a miniature set, and things like that. So Ben and I hooked up, and he's created a sheet for RPG Crate. It's exclusive. There's no other companies currently that are going to have that sheet, and that'll be one of the products that are included.
Okay, cool. So who else do you have involved with it?
Yeah, so we've got Wormwood Quality Gaming Supplies. Have you guys heard of them?
Yes, I have. I've actually looked at quite a bit of their stuff. It's actually pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's incredibly amazing. Their stuff is fantastic. I've worked a deal with them, and I've got some of the dice vaults, the little boxes that you put your dice set in. It's got these really super powerful magnets that hold it closed. It's got some foam on the inside, and they're expert crafted. That's an item that you can purchase at a discount on the website. And I'm going to offer an incentive. I'm going to offer those as prizes to people. I have master-crafted a lottery item that I'm going to be giving away. Retail value of that is over almost $300. It's over $200 retail for that. So that's going to be something that we give away. I've worked with several artists for this crate for the first one. And let me pull up my list here. I don't want to miss any names because this stuff's important. Lloyd Metcalf is one of the artists that I'm working with. Joseph Garcia, Janelle Jaquez, Richard Sardinha. Those guys are going to be contributing art to it, and I've commissioned to work with them to create a product that's going to be included. There's some exclusive written content that will only be in RPG Crate. One of the adventure settings is called Tales from the Bloody Bucket. It's like a tavern, an old style, a Tudor-style architecture tavern, and it's a brawling tavern. If your adventuring party goes there, they're guaranteed to witness or be involved in a fight. And each month, RPG Crate will feature adventure settings that are placed and told from the Bloody Bucket.
Nice. So you have a tavern that's going to be involved around brawling. I can get
Yep.
behind.
Yep.
Sounds pretty epic. So is it going to be kind of generic for any game system, or?
Yep. So it'll be a mixture. The Tales from the Bloody Bucket are generic. Those are going to be written in a creative format, a little more story to it than what most modules might have. Really light on rules and stats. It'll let you put whatever you need to integrate that into your campaign. Some of the other products are going to be very specific. Alex Korgzen with Mischief Incorporated. We've got a module from those guys, a full-blown OSR-style module that we're going to be putting in the Crate 1. That's got some specific rules in it.
All right. Sounds pretty cool. So we've got modules. We've got actually the Wormwood definitely caught my attention. I've been following off and on. You've been sending out emails with teasers for it.
Yep.
And so are there? I didn't remember. Do you have miniatures going in there as well?
Yep. So we've got a deal with Effin' Cool Minis. John Popson and I worked up a deal, and we're going to be using a miniature that we've actually gotten an okay from, I believe it's Cobalt Press that's working with them to do a deal on a miniature. We have a Dragonborn character that's going to be in the first crate.
Awesome.
It looks kind of like the dude from The Curse of the Ajer Bonds. Do you guys remember that old module? The one with the Dragon Bait was the character's name on it?
Yeah, that's going way back. I remember that one.
Yeah, the miniature looks a little bit like that dude. It's pretty cool. It's kind of a mixture between a Draconian and a Dragonborn from 4th edition, or sort of a mixture. So we'll be putting something like that in there.
Awesome. So I haven't actually looked. What is the price point for Dungeon Crate?
Yeah, we just finalized the price point, so it's $29.89 a month, and that's and then it'd be a little bit extra for shipping wherever you're located. That's a pretty popular question, and price point for this kind of thing as a product is really important. Gamers are very price conscious. They're very value driven. They want to get a lot of adventure for the price, and it's a very competitive market. So I kind of pitched a balance between not too expensive, but not just cheap where there's no quality involved, because the things that are going in do have a cost. So
right,
that's kind of where we landed. And I considered averaging the shipping cost and including it. There are some crates that say free shipping. You guys know there's nothing free in this world really, so it's just baked into their cost. But this, some people that are close to me or live in the Midwest, they get a pretty good benefit from it, and people that live in very far northeast corner of Maine or something, they're probably used to shipping costs as it is. So.
Yeah, that's just kind of the nature of everything in the industry.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard thing to balance, because that's just like there's launching just recently as well. I forget what it's called, but it's a miniature wargaming oriented crate coming out of the UK. And they're about a similar price point, but it's like, so what is the shipping to the U.S.? And they kind of went, eh.
Yeah. That's interesting. I've gotten a couple of emails from people that want to be a distributor in the UK. So I offer to ship. I'll pretty much ship anywhere in the world on this crate. But like you say, it's $25 additional to ship over the pond. So it's pretty prohibitive unless you're really super into this particular topic or maybe that particular month. I'll send it to Canada for about $15, so that's not too bad actually.
No, that's actually pretty good.
It's not terrible. It almost comes to the point where you want to have a partnership, like a fulfillment warehouse, if you would, in the other countries, just so that way you have one place to ship it to, and then they can dole it out from there.
Yeah, I think the challenge is that a lot of the products that are created in the UK that are available to drop ship to a distributor there, it's just pretty simple in concept to create the distribution model and then sort of create a business there for themselves. It's possible. there's a lot of the industry is still kind of new. Subscription businesses have been out for, like I was saying, for a long time, but there's only a few that are competing in the RPG space right now. Paizo actually did or they still have a subscription model that you can subscribe to their publications, and you get basically their content at a discount, like a 30% off discount on some of the items. So individual developers, individual publishers have done things like this, but it's very limited in how many they're able to pull together multiple products like this. The big guys, they're really not messing with the independent developers either.
Yeah, I mean, not for nothing. I mean, what you're doing, it takes a lot of effort, and that's not in any way like thumbing my nose at it or anything. It's just I know how much effort you're putting into this in order to make this a labor of love, because reaching out to all the different vendors in order to supply the crate, I know how daunting that can be. So, it's definitely hats off to you on that one.
Thank you. Yep, it's pretty labor intensive. It's a deceptively complex thing. It's something that you can look at and go, hey, that's pretty good. I think maybe I'll try that. And then you start thinking, if you're going to do that every month and you're going to keep doing new vendors here and there, it becomes a pretty serious commitment.
Yeah, so speaking of the new vendors every month, now, when you're doing this, I take it there's planning behind it, but are you focusing on certain RPG games throughout the different months? So, like, you might do 2 months where it's, The Strange by Monty Cook Games, for example, or 2 months where it's something by Modifius, 2 months where it's, D&D-esque that could be used for any combination of games. Like, do you kind of have a plan similar to that?
Yeah, sort of. So I'm going to pick themes, and when I talk with the vendors, I'm going to tell them the theme for the month. If they're able to produce a product, or they have a product that's not released worldwide yet that meets that theme, then we'll talk about putting it in. And then, so that's the contributed content portion of it. And then there's the other portion, which is the content that I'm actually commissioning that's written specifically for RPG Crate. And that's going to have a central theme, long-term. They're going to be interwoven between. I think there's going to be some pretty amazing stuff that comes out, like sort of like that show, Lost, or one of the other TV shows where you watch it a couple of times and you go, holy cow, man, that's talking about the very first episode. And then you got to go back and watch that first episode to figure out what the heck they're talking about. So I've got plans like that. So the first month's theme is going to be dragons. It's got to be a dragon, right? RPG Crate's got a big dragon logo. So a lot of the things that were illustrated by Lloyd and Janelle and Joseph are dragon related and themed appropriately. Wait, I can't believe I forgot to mention Dyson. Dyson does maps. This dude draws maps for old school style hex maps and things like that. Have you guys, I don't know if you're familiar with Dyson's dodecahedron blog. He's got some pretty crazy good stuff.
Nice. So
I'm not.
Yeah, you guys should Google Dyson Maps. He's pretty crazy.
You have to look him. Yeah, I'll have to look him up individually, because I used to read a lot of the dodecahedron and Dungeon and Dragon, and pretty much every RPG magazine that was out back in the day. I think I had a subscription to, and keep in mind I'm 34, so a lot of that back in the day was pretty much my weekly allowance.
Yeah. No, I was the same way. The thing that Dyson's doing is he's hand drawing maps. He's doing it with pencil and ink, and then scanning it and putting it on his blog. He offers some of the maps for commercial use, free for use. He's got a Patreon account and all that kind of stuff. But it harkens back to the old days of us sitting around, gamers sitting around a table as kids and drawing the maps out. And the digital age has created a lot of programs that make digital art really good, right, in a lot of ways. And it takes things a different direction sometimes. I think some of the gamers really look for that old school kind of feel to it. And the new players, I think they really respect that. They see the maps in some of the new books. A lot of the maps in these books that you buy today, 5th edition books and things like that, those are hand-drawn maps that are digitized and cleaned up a little bit later.
Yeah, well, I think it just adds to the overall mood. I mean, if you're playing a classic, medieval fantasy dungeon crawl, very Lord of the Rings-esque or D&D-esque, like, you expect to see stuff that looks hand-drawn because of the fact of the times. Like, nobody was going to digitally remake anything.
Yeah, you're right.
So, yeah, to me, immersion in role-playing games, and I know I've mentioned it numerous times, but immersion in role-playing games has always been my biggest thing, even more so than, like, the system or the setting itself. Like, the more I could feel that I'm in a game, the better. And if that means hand-drawn maps, clippings of newspapers, especially like Call of Cthulhu, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
That all really, that to me is what makes the game. So, yeah, I mean, having somebody that does unique things like that and throwing that into the crate is just, that's an extra bit of TLC to really help people along. So you were talking about having exclusive adventures and things like that for RPG Crate. How often would those be done?
I'm going to try to do them every month, every single crate. It won't be a full-blown adventure, but it'll be several adventure settings. It'll be something like, okay, do you guys remember the old Greyhawk Adventures box set that's got the cards in it? They're like one-night adventure cards.
Yes.
It kind of had a map, it had a story, a setting. It was one postcard thickness cardstock, and it was pretty much designed for an evening. That's the style I'm going to go for with Tales from the Bloody Bucket. So every month there's going to be at least 3 cards in the crate that are related to those settings, and they're going to be strung together in a long-term story.
Cool, yeah, because I was trying to think back to that box, and I myself never had it, but I had some of my buddies that did have it, and I know that some of the adventures that we did were based out of that, but it's been such a long time that I couldn't tell you any specifics about that particular box.
Yeah, so if you, for instance, if you subscribe to the first crate, you get anyone actually, we have a free PDF that's the setting, Tales from the Bloody Bucket setting, and that's the map of the inn, the map of the tavern. It's got some NPCs that are going to be added to it a little bit later, and it's got a short story that leads an adventuring party to the tavern. And then each crate subsequently is going to have 3 stories that are told for the tavern, and it would be an appropriate use for the crate would be if you ordered it and it come in, and then each month you guys could sit down for 3 sessions, run through each of the adventures, and then next month you get 3 more.
I like that. I really like that as an option because it allows people to do something outside of the norm. Because we have so many things out there now that are, Pathfinder Society. I forget what they call the D&D organized play. But there's so many things out there where it's like it's very structured. And having somebody do something independent that allows people to, play the games that they want outside of this like structured play is definitely, it harkens back to the creativity that I feel that a lot of modern day RPGs kind of did away with, if that makes sense.
Yep. That's kind of the feel we're going for. At the end of 6 months or 3 months or somewhere, 8 months, I don't know exactly yet, we'll have a collection anthology. We'll probably put all of the adventures together in one product. Maybe, I don't know, if there's an interest in getting a printed bound version of all of those together at one time, heck, it's even possible if somebody subscribes for a long enough duration, maybe I'll just add that Joker in there for free. Like after 12 months, you get a big, huge hardbound book with all of the adventures all bound together and put into it to keep, kind of depends on the response I get from the customers at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I know if that were me on that side of it, that would definitely be something I would want. Just to kind of show it's like, look, I've contributed to, in a way it kind of shows I've contributed to this.
Yep.
So, yeah, I could definitely see the value in that.
So I got some other vendors here I can go through if you're interested in a few more.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
Yep. So Brian Rathbone's written a series of books called World of God's Land. He's a prolific Twitterer. He tweets, man, dude, like, I think his total tweet count is probably 13,000 or something. It's really short, witty tweets. He's a full-time writer, and he produces downloadable content. It's pretty inexpensive, but we're going to put his books in there. We're going to get a download code for his books for free.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yep, and Battle Bards is creating an album for us. Battle Bards is a company that does fantasy, RPG, and gaming-related music, sounds, and they have a digital soundboard. Really cool.
Wow. So, that I could definitely see something like that.
Getting your own soundtrack. That's pretty epic.
Yeah, it's pretty wicked. So it'll be. It won't be unique, and I just want to be fair, be upfront with you guys. It's not unique music for me, but the album itself and the ability to download it is going to be included in the first 3 crates.
Yeah, I could definitely get behind that.
And Chessex Dice, they're on board. I've actually got a social media push. A post that I put on my Facebook page, if it gets shared enough, I'm going to put, and this is exclusive, this is the first time anybody will have heard this, I'm going to put 2 complete 10 dice sets in the first crate, in addition to all this other stuff I've been talking about.
Oh, wow.
And it's the 4 6-siders and the other dice, right? It's a 10 dice set, so it's 2 of those, with dice bags.
Yeah, that is everything people need to get going. So right there should be more than enough of an incentive to jump in on this.
Got more.
Well, please keep going. I mean, if you spill the beans.
Yep, I'm spilling. So old school Renaissance OSR is a pretty common term, right?
Yeah.
So Bad Mike has got a books and games company, and he's come across a treasure hoard of a whole bunch of really old OSR magazines, modules, and books, things like that. So I'm working a deal with him. I'm going to be including some of those in the first crate as well. Some Judges Guild old school, it's printed in the 80s. It's a hand typecast, photocopied look. It's about as old school as you get as far as RPGs go.
Yeah, wow. That's going back there. I was almost expecting you to start saying that you have some of the old play-by-mail stuff coming in there, too.
No, didn't quite go that far back. That was pretty fun stuff, though.
Yeah, for those of you out there that have never played it, there used to be this old... Well, there's a couple of systems, so I can't say it was just one, but it was basically you had a character, and you would write out what your character was going to do, and it would get mailed to whoever, and then somebody else out there in the world was screwing with you. So it might be that they just came right out and just like tried to fight you like a gladiatory combat or not. And you would get a letter back basically saying, you've been knocked unconscious and all your stuff is stolen and you're laying naked in the middle of the street.
Yeah, what do you do?
Yeah, what do you do now? Or it's just like, hey, you're dead. Make a new character. And it's like, well, that's great. So I spent, 2.5 hours writing this thing, mailing it off, and 2 weeks later I find out I'm dead. So
yeah, those were kind of the epitome of patience.
Yes,
really that's what I was just thinking.
But at the same time, depending upon who was running it in the company at the time, they were so much fun, even if it was just like this little weird, quirky pastime.
Yeah.
Nice. So
I remember getting into I think it was Rifts, and it was an online group playing Rifts, and you had to post daily. I started trying to keep up with them, and after like the first week, I was just like, I'm done, I'm out. And they did. They promptly kicked me out because I didn't post within that day. I was like, whew. I couldn't imagine the patience of having to wait a week or 2 weeks to find out what happened.
getting kicked out, that kind of reminds me of the EverQuest and World of Warcraft and those games. If you get hooked into those and you're in a guild and they have requirements that you play, 4 hours a night minimum, crap like that.
Yeah.
I played EVE Online and I ran a mining guild. At one point we had 250 people in the guild across the world. I had people in Australia, the UK, the US, all the times, and they would get mad at me for sleeping. They'd be like, "Where do you want this shit?" I had just had a newborn baby. That was the worst thing. I had a newborn baby. I took like a month off from work, and it went into the holidays, so I had lots of free time. So at first, it's like, oh, this is a breeze. I'm not thinking that, getting up with the baby all. I went back to work, and I was getting emails at work with people asking me questions on what they should be doing.
Yeah. I sat one time for like 30 hours in one game session straight for EverQuest for one. There was like 40 of us in a guild in one room, and we had to maintain guild presence in this room to keep the spot for 30-something hours for one thing to pop, and it was one piece to one guy for one item.
Yep.
I took
Through that.
Yeah, so gone are those days, right? I think there's still people doing it. Those things are still,
Yeah, I mean,
there are those few.
Yeah, there are those people that still like that grind out there, but digital age, everybody's changed. Now they don't have the patience for it anymore.
Yeah, and I think the games are getting a little shorter in session as a result too. There was a announcement today or an article I was reading. I don't know if it was actually an announcement. It was more of just a blog article that a lot of the adventures that are being written now for Wizards are designed not for 8-hour, but for a 4 to 5 hour game session. That's kind of the soft spot for a game session now is 4 hours.
I can remember when I started playing D&D, and it was actually there was a few of us that all started playing. And we started playing, and we had 8-hour game sessions, and at one point we were going to go snowboarding, and we were going to be doing all this stuff all weekend. The night before we left, we started playing. We didn't go to bed till like 4 o'clock in the morning to get up at 6. We go to meet the guy who's going to take us out to wherever this place was. He never shows up, so we're all standing there going, what are we going to do? D&D. So we go back to my buddy's place. We play D&D till we get kicked out of our friend's place because other people wanted to sleep. So we go over to my other friend's house where we then continue to proceed to play for the rest of the weekend.
And you remember those stories too. Let me ask you, you guys I'm sure you guys have played Magic the Gathering, right?
Yep.
We're not going to talk about that.
Do you remember, honestly, do you remember the first Magic the Gathering game you had? Do you remember what it was you played and scored?
No.
Do you remember the first D&D game that you played?
Yes.
You probably remember the character. You probably remember what you were. Man, it was the rats and the adventure with the fighter and the red book out of the box set for me. That's really, I think, what we're trying to get here is something that builds that history with people so that they can remember. Hey, I remember I got an RPG crate. It had these products in it. I remember opening it. We started playing, and maybe they stick with it for years. Maybe they just do it a few months, but I'm just kind of hoping that they remember that. Christmas in a box. The red and green colors is very specific. I wanted to kind of simulate sort of a Christmas morning thing with the box and treasure. And so there we go.
Yeah, I could definitely appreciate that.
And hearing everything that you're getting put in it and that it's coming on a regular basis, I mean, it sounds pretty epic.
Cool.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Now, when when it comes down to the vendors that you talk to, I know that you've spoken a lot with a lot of the independent guys as far as like, well, and even more so than some of the independents, but have you reached out to specific vendors to cover specific RPG lines as well? So like, for example, I know we touched on it a little bit, but like Chaosium, for example, they're still pretty much like Call of Cthulhu. Like, have they, offered anything into the crate to kind of say, hey, for a Call of Cthulhu month, do this?
Yeah, so no, not yet. We're still pretty new. We're still getting word out. I haven't, taken on a large budget for advertising. It's sort of a grassroots movement. But yeah, eventually, it's very possible. I had a conversation with Boar on Cobalt Games. Talked with him, and there's a really good possibility that we get an introductory product from Cobalt Games put in. They've got some stuff that's just come out that's nominated for any awards, so they're producing some fantastic material. The one thing I want to be very cautious of, and I want to be careful to not just put stuff in there that is really easy to go down and buy at a bookstore or buy from your local store. I'm hoping to not compete directly with the local game stores. I want it to be supplementary. I want it to be something that I could call, and this is one of my plans, is to actually call stores call game stores and say, hey, look at this crate. What if we have a deal where I give all of your customers a little bit of a discount? Maybe they buy the crate from you. Maybe there's a little bit of incentive to you that we can work out. And I want it to supplement what they're doing. I don't want, honestly, I'm probably not going to put, a Wizards of the Coast hardback in there. It's something that's very easy to get. They print 1 million of those things. So I want to focus on the middle ground and the independent publisher.
Right, which makes sense. I mean, you definitely want to shoot for something more custom, because the moment you just start throwing stuff in there people can pick up anywhere, then they start looking at it as, why am I getting this?
Yeah. Now, if we deal with some of these companies that, exclusive content or something that's premier or something that's just introductory, that's a possibility. I wouldn't mind doing that at all. Maybe something that's released, maybe a month early or something, and if you're a member of RPG Crate, then you get, hey, I got that book a month before you. That's sort of bragging rights a little bit. It's not something I would do often, though. It would get a little bit old, I think.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, because you don't want to turn RPG Crate into a pre-order system.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Right. I wouldn't want to see something like that, but I will say that that I had Loot Crate for a while, and now they're coming out with even more themed stuff, and specific games. It's not the game, but it has a lot of stuff to do with it. And every month I get, hey, don't you want to resubscribe? And I'm like, yes, I want that. No, I don't want to pay you anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point. They're doing really good to create complementary product. That's kind of where I'm headed with this, too. If we were to deal with one of the other big publishers and we created a complementary product or through a licensing deal, that's something that would be possible. That's more of an exclusive item, and I think the subscribers would appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it would really engage some of the people, just, hey, this is coming out, and here's this crate just themed, just basically to go with it, and here's all the awesomeness you could possibly get.
Yeah, good idea.
Cool. So we've talked pretty much about everything that RPG Crate is. We've touched on the stuff that you want to include, and we've talked a little bit about what you kind of want to do in the future. So let's talk a little bit about the actual games themselves. What are you currently playing as far as RPGs go?
So I'm playing 5th edition and 2nd edition D&D.
Oh, wow, you're going old school.
Yeah, and I'm actually doing some board games, some things like that. But mostly my personal interest is in the tabletop RPG.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, that's unfortunately something that I haven't had a chance to touch into too much yet, and a lot of it just comes down to the fact that I just moved. So, finding time for RPGs at the moment is it's a little tough, but I'm working on it. And I know that Nick is pretty much shut himself off from the rest of the world if it's not dealing with miniatures. And
I got so many to paint.
So what kind of miniatures are you into?
So I go with 28 to 32 millimeter. I mean, I do a lot of skirmish gaming, but I have right. Tim keeps trying to drag me into Kings of War so that I have to build a big army.
Yeah.
I won't talk about the 100 horses that are sitting right behind me that are half painted.
Yeah, I did. Back in the day, I did a Warhammer tabletop undead army. That was a very popular army in my area. It was very inexpensive to create a bunch of undead. Back then, you couldn't field it in a game if it wasn't painted. They wouldn't let you put unpainted miniatures on the table. So skeletons were very very simple to paint.
Yeah, normally
and so.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Nick.
I was gonna say, I run the gamut from Frostgrave to, which it's kind of Mordheim, Love Child, Relic Blade. So a lot of fantasy. I have some modern stuff in front of me right now. It's Wild in the Streets, and I just love good minis. I'll admit I just backed Miniature Wargaming the movie, their second Kickstarter, mostly because they said that they're coming out with one of their tiers has an Orson Welles mini. There's only going to be 300 of them that they ever cast and make, and that's it. And it's being done by Alan Perry.
Nice.
So it's like, you got me there. I mean, and it also comes with several other miniatures done really well by other people. But who can pass up, an Orson Welles mini?
Yeah.
Well, if you like miniatures.
Yeah, I've been trying to drag him into some of the bigger games, but yeah, I mean, even though I know lately a lot of the stuff I've been posting on Skirmish Supremacy has been pretty much Kings of War, Kings of War, Kings of War, that's because of the fact I decided to jump into a mass battle game, not have anything painted, and then within a month and a half time frame go to a tournament where everything's required to be painted. So, needless to say, yes, my focus right now has been Kings of War. However, I do play other games out there. I'm a big fan of the old Mutant Chronicles. So, harkening back to the old RPG days, Mutant Chronicles was my jam back in the day when it came time to like that gritty sci-fi feel.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Space Hulk was one that I enjoyed a lot of time on.
Yes. Anything, to me, I like my stuff a little bit darker. For me, even going back into fantasy, Michael Moorcock was like my writer of choice when it came time to fantasy. Obviously everybody likes Robert Howard because Conan's a badass, but at the end of the day, when it came time to like more of that high fantasy, it was definitely, Elric really was like my personal, I guess if you not really hero. That is the worst term to use for him. My character of choice.
Yeah, no, I get it. I had an opportunity to do a Rogue Trader game not too long ago. We created characters, for Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader, and that started out to be pretty fun. Schedules didn't really work out, and we haven't played, but that's a fantasy setting that seems pretty wicked. I haven't had a chance to roleplay in it yet, but it seems interesting.
Yeah, 40K, it's all about... It's pretty much all about, hey, at any point, any of us could be possessed by demons. So
right.
If we just make the masses dumb, and they don't realize that we're making them dumb, the less they think, the less of a chance they have to be possessed by demons. So it's very dystopian in its thought process.
Yeah, so the Void and all that Warhammer 40K in general, I've played in. The Rogue Trader was the one we hadn't really gone into yet. That seems sort of, I don't know, it seems sort of Han Solo, Luke Skywalker kind of thing going on.
Yeah. It's a little bit more high fantasy than like Dark Heresy, which is the other 40K universe RPG where we're working for the Inquisition.
Yeah.
The Rogue Traders are allowed to kind of go out and be like, oh yeah, we'll trade with Eldar, just don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
So they give it a little bit more of a freedom for more of, if you like a little bit more of a variation in your sci-fi fantasy.
So we kind of, I don't know, we kind of, when we were sitting and talking about it, we sort of likened it, the difference between like the military versus sort of free range pirates, I guess.
Yeah, that's about the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So yeah, past that, that's been the focus of mine lately. Is pretty much just anything Kings of War related, as far as gaming goes. Unfortunately, now after this weekend, I plan on taking a break. As far as like having to do anything with mass battle, I want to go back to my skirmish gaming. I've got so much like smaller army stuff that I just want to paint. And it'd be nice knowing that I could paint one guy and know that there's not 20 more of him behind it.
That is what I've been enjoying.
That's a good point. So how much of mass production does it take away from the hobby? That's a really good point. Especially whenever a game is so dependent on player engagement with the miniatures themselves. If it's a labor, and it could take away from it some. That skirmisher size of unit, 4 to 6 pieces, that's probably a happy median. Maybe it isn't the best thing for sales numbers, but it's certainly, I think, better for long-term engagement with your community, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that, Nick and I have both talked about, in detail numerous times, both on air and off air, is the fact that a lot of the skirmish games out there now, they very much have like an RPG hybrid feel, where it's like it's still a miniatures game. You still need the terrain, you still need the minis. The rules are very much focused on the combat, but at the same time, there's a lot of RPG elements to it. So it's not just, I've got my warband, you've got your warband, let's run to the middle and smash each other's skulls in until one of us is the last man standing. There's a lot of objective-based stuff to it, where it's like, okay, maybe, if it's something more post-APOC, we're fighting in an abandoned factory, and we're going to get the last piece of a computer hard drive that has, schematics for some sort of gun, and during that game, we each have our own secondary objectives and things like that. So there's a lot of games out there that are adding those RPG elements back into it, especially if they're skirmish level, that are, they're really tying together the RPG and the miniatures world very much like it was in the past, where it's like, because I even remember going back in the days, and, for me, early 90s, early 2000s, like, people, when they played Dungeons and Dragons, they came to the table with like their own miniatures painted up, and it wasn't so much grid maps as much as people made like real terrain for the table, for especially for like the boss fights and things like that. So that to me, that to me harkens back to old school, where I think over the course of the last 15 years we've seen a lot more of pre-painted miniatures and hex maps, and it's been kind of left at that. So, to me, I like seeing that in the skirmish games. I like seeing that hybrid feel being brought back into it. But, that's me on a personal level.
No, I think you're speaking to a lot of people when you say that there's a lot of crossover for gaming in general, too. That I think Wizards is doing a thing where, Magic the Gathering is now a setting for 5th edition.
Yeah, I just saw something about that. I don't know too much about it, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they started writing it. One of the internal writers produced a PDF that you can download that presents the setting, and it's some rules for it, and it's taken off. It's gotten very popular. Planeshift Zendikar is a digital setting that you can download. It's for 5th edition, and that's a pretty common topic now. How much of a crossover is possible? A lot of people, I think, that role-play RPGs in general, I think they play other games, but not as much. But then I think when you take a person that's hardcore Magic the Gathering, I think a lot of them role-play some, but not as much, and that kind of crossover is more of a casual crossover. I think you might be hard-pressed to find a lot of people that do 50-50, right? That, hey, I play Magic every Friday, and then I play D&D every Saturday. maybe there's some that do, but I think people gravitate towards one or the other. But that product that sort of crosses over and gets a little bit of extra, consumer input from that's a good move.
Yeah, I could
definitely.
Yeah, and then at the same time they killed off Ravenloft and Dark Sun, so I'm not too happy with Wizards of the Coast at the moment. But hey.
Well, the Curse of Strahd came back, so Ravenloft's golden.
I really hope they bring back the full setting and not just Barovia.
Yeah, you never know. they've got their pulse on. I'll tell you one thing though, they kind of had their pulse on their customers now. They did such. I think they really learned a lesson with 4th edition. They did extensive amounts of playtesting and they did a lot of discussion with their people. So with the actual consumer population, so they seem to be headed in the right direction.
Which is good. I mean, I think that was something that, and this is a personal opinion of mine, coming from like 2nd edition, 3rd edition, 4th edition. I have yet to play 5th edition, so I can't comment on that as much. But from what I've been told, is 5th edition kind of harkens back to a little bit of like, I guess if you want to call it 2.5, where it was like not quite as complex as 3rd edition, but had a lot more to it than what 2nd edition had. Because 2nd edition kind of had like the bare bones, like this is your character is a fighter. From there, you take it from there. From there, you say what's going on.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's a good analogy. I don't know if I came up with it. I probably heard it somewhere else, but 2nd edition is like a sandwich, and 4th edition was like, the sandwich had gone stale, but you kept getting it. And then, some of the other editions were more like buffets. 3.5 was like a buffet that you were just you felt bad if you didn't have all the books, right? If you didn't try everything that was on the buffet, you just felt like you didn't get your money's worth. How could you play 3.5 and not have 14 backpacks full of books? But 5th edition is more of, it's more of like it's more like an onion. It's just got layers. You can enjoy a piece of it at a time if you want. You don't have to get real complicated if you don't want to. It's customizable in that way.
Yeah, which is definitely a good thing. I think that was one of the biggest problems that I saw when 4th edition came out, is that every time I played it, I felt more and more like I was playing a board game. Again, that's my own personal opinion of it, but the fact that they, even going back into like 2nd and 3rd edition, it's like a fireball. Everybody knew that like had a 30-foot radius when it exploded. And then you get into 4th edition, it's like, it expands, from its point of impact like 4 squares in each direction. Well, what the hell is a square?
Yeah, there was some lessons learned there for sure.
So, that was just kind of my personal feelings of 4th edition. I was like, why are we doing this? Like, why am I pushing things 2 squares?
Yeah, so I never actually played 4th edition. My brother was playing it some, and, every time I looked at it, and, I did see it also commented online, it felt like it had that kind of World of Warcraft effect. Things were a lot easier than they were in EverQuest.
If you pay attention, if you look at the artwork and some of the contributors for that edition, it was that way by design.
Yeah, and I think that's what hurt it with people who'd played 3.5 first edition. Any other edition was all of a sudden, instead of having this great big world where you could do all these things, you kind of had this, I pushed this button and wow, I did something.
It sure has some pretty artwork, though. I honestly, I enjoyed the artwork that's in the games.
Yeah. Back Dark Sun, so.
Oh yeah, that's some of the best.
I don't know. Has Wizards ever not had good artwork?
That's a good question.
I can't really recall. Not just a one-off, not had good artwork, but ever had anything come out that everyone was just like, oh yeah, no, that's just crap artwork.
First edition Monster Manual. They had some pretty derp-looking creatures in there.
That stuff really stuck around too, man. Modrons, love them. Yeah, some of that stuff is pretty crazy.
I guess that's true. Speaking of which, so the funny part is a buddy of mine last year handed me a first edition D&D book, and he's like, make a character. So I set it on my desk where I did all my modeling, and I'd kind of looked through it and kind of started making a character. But then my light was sitting right in front of it, and I would set my models on top of the book, and I'd take a picture, and it was funny because I would post it up to be like, hey, people, critique this model that I just painted. And they'd be like, is that a first edition D&D book? And I almost never got feedback on my model. We just talked about first edition D&D.
That's what you get.
I know, right?
Screw with a classic.
But it did make a great background, I have to say. It's probably the best backdrop I've ever had.
Well, yeah, there you go. You got that going for you. So we got to start wrapping this up here pretty soon. I could sit here and talk about RPGs all night and, spend the night just gabbering on and on and on and on about everything I've ever played. But, I need to spend some time with my wife. So tell us a little bit about RPG Crate. Where can we find you? All your social media sites. Go ahead and unload.
Oh, this is super easy, man. I think maybe I got lucky. Just put RPG Crate on whatever you want to do. Facebook, Twitter, it's all .com. It's all just /RPG Crate. At RPG Crate, hashtag RPG Crate, whatever.
How did you get off so easy?
Yeah, I don't know. I just got lucky. I really don't know. I was honestly, guys, I was amazed when I started researching for the name and to register it. It was all there, so I just ganked it all one evening and went with it.
All right,
that's
so
awesome.
Twitter, Facebook, .com, everything is just RPG Crate. It's a very easy way to find you.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, Chris, I definitely want to thank you for coming on tonight and talking about this. And once you get up and you get launched a little bit more, we get a couple of crates out the door, we definitely need to have you come back on and talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah, that sounds good. I really appreciate you guys reaching out and having me here, talk to you, and I wish you guys luck. I'll listen in on you and see what you guys have coming up in the future as well. Appreciate it.
Excellent.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, Nick, well, is there anything else you want to throw in there before we head out?
Just one thing that I was thinking of. So this week, or this past weekend, I woke up, had some awesome feedback from someone who had just found the podcast on, and they messaged us via Twitter, which I don't let Tim have access to, so you guys can actually send, real information there. You won't have to worry about him trolling you.
Or just insult the hell out of me.
There you go. Tell us your real feelings. But no, it was kind of awesome. But I was thinking about it, and one of the things that I would like to ask people is, I love hearing the feedback. I would love to see the feedback on iTunes, podcast, anywhere that you listen to it. If you can just give it a thumbs up, give it a share, give it a review, even negative review. Well, actually, I'd prefer you just to send me the negative review. Don't put that on there.
Yeah, let's not do the negative review thing.
Kidding there. But no, just any kind of review you have, go ahead, put it out there just to help boost us up so that other people can find us and enjoy. That'd be awesome.
Yes, and the more that you share, the less I let Nick talk.
Well, great. Now you just ruined your chances of getting any shares.
All right, on that note, this has been another episode of Skirmish Supremacy. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a good night.
Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Skirmish Supremacy. To see more of the antics that Nick and I do, you can check us out on Facebook at Skirmish Supremacy. We also have Twitter, which we can be reached at Skirmish Supreme, because apparently Skirmish Supremacy does not fit in Twitter. And if you want to email us directly, you can reach us at tim@skirmishsupremacy.com or nick@skirmishsupremacy.com. Thanks for listening.